Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Colin for YouTube back with another Dark Shadows video for you guys. So I'm here to discuss the Night of Dark Shadows movie. And yes, I am going to do the 2012 Tim Burton Dark Shadows movie. So you have Night of Dark Shadows, which is made in 1971. This stars David Selby as Quentin Collins, Kate Jackson as Tracy Collins, John Carlin as Alex Jenkins, Nancy Barrett is his wife, Claire Jenkins. That's right. Nancy Barrett is not playing a Collins. Actually, Nancy Barrett didn't. There's a moment. There's times in the series where, in 1897, Nancy Barrett isn't playing a Collins. She's playing the daughter of Reverend Trask. So, but in this movie, she's not playing a Collins. There are just moments where Nancy Barrett isn't playing a Collins, and it's so different. And again, there are many differences of Carolyn. Remember Crazy Carolyn in 1995? I love that Carolyn, by the way. I gotta write Judah Zachary a thank you card. If he's on Twitter, by the way. Judah Zachary is on Twitter. He is everywhere. Hail our master Judah Zachary. My God. We all worship the head of Judah Zachary, and that is literal. God. Shout out to him, by the way. Um, is this, or sorry, again, this stars David Selby, Kate Jackson. David Selby playing Quentin Collins, Kate Jackson playing Tracy Collins. I talked about Alex and Jenkins and Claire Jenkins. Um, the fact you have John Carlin and Nancy Barrett playing different characters. They're not playing, John Carlin is not playing Willie Loomis. Now, John Carlin did play different characters in the series. He did not just play Willie Loomis. That's a whole nother topic for a whole nother time. Um, that I do want to get into. So you have Laura Parker, who's playing a different version of Angelique in this movie. You have Delana Millay playing Laura Collins in this movie. No, no, not the Phoenix. I want to make that clear. Again, I've talked about my House of Dark Shadows video that the movie did a really good job separating itself from the series. These are not canon with the series, and Night of Dark Shadows is the same way. It's not canon with the series. I think that's one of the most important things to remember with these movies. They're not canon to the series. Do they take things from the series? Yes, and I'll get into that. You have Gabriel, Christopher Pennock playing Gabriel Collins. I almost called Christopher Gabriel. Now, if the name these if the name Gabriel Collins sounds familiar, it's because there was a Gabriel Collins in the series. In 1840, there was a Gabriel Collins who was in a wheelchair, and everyone thought, well, he's paralyzed, right? He can't walk. Wrong. He can walk, and he tends to strangle his victims. You talk about psychotic. What a character, right? Um, this is not that Gabriel Collins, though he is a bit jealous. I do think that's sort of where the similarity is, where Gabriel Collins's jealousy in 1840 becomes psychotic. This Gabriel Collins is just jealous that his brother is banning his wife. And yes, that's legit. Quentin Quentin is having sex with, or sorry, Charles is having sex with Angelique. I got to keep that in mind. Charles Collins, who David Selby is also playing, is having sex with Angelique. No, they don't say they're having sex, but come on, it's hinted in this movie. I like the psychology of this movie. The psychology of this movie is really, really good, and I'll get into that. Um, you also have James Storm playing Gerard Stiles. He is not playing the Judah Zachary Gerard Stiles. He's playing a different version as well. And you have Grayson Hall playing Carletta. I love these characters in this movie. Are they taking anything from the series? Well, what are they taking from this series? And I know I have to get to the other matter at hand too, and I will. What are they taking from the series? They are taking, now keep in mind, in the series there was parallel time. In 1970, there was a parallel time room where Quentin was married to, at one point in time, Angelique, and then he gets married to Maggie Evans. Now, are they sort of taking that story? Yes and no. In this story, he's not married to Maggie Evans, and I'll say this: Kate Jackson does not get enough credit for playing a completely new character. This is not her playing Daphne Heritage. This is not her trying to play you know a version of Maggie Evans either. She is literally playing a brand new character, and Kate Jackson does an amazing job in this movie. I'm not taking anything away from David Selby. He is the star of this movie. Both do a great job carrying this movie. They really do. Um, their chemistry and their scenes together are intense and great. Neither of them get enough credit. And John Carlin and Nancy Barrett too. I'll get to them, but I love how when we start this, we're driving up. We're literally driving up. We see the trees. We see the beautiful drive up to the estate. We somewhat get this in House of Dark Shadows, but it feels so brief. With this feels like a longer, and it's during the daytime, which I love. I love the shots here, and I guess I'm going to be a homer. This is my favorite movie of the three, so yes, I'm probably going to favor this movie more so than House. It's nothing personal. I just prefer this movie. I do like House. House of Dark Shadows, I've said, is entertaining. Night of Dark Shadows really tells a more psychological story. And two, this movie has the best soundtrack. And yes, I will leave a link into my favorite score from this film. So you have the drive up. You have Mr. and Mrs. Collins driving up to the estate. You have Quentin Collins and Tracy Collins. And Quentin's driving. They're coming up to the estate. Yes, they are filming at the Lyndhurst estate again. And that begs the question, is this a sequel to House of Dark Shadows? Now, the word sequel is really funny here. I had asked my question. I think either Mark had asked me or I had asked him. I want to say Mark asked me, "Do I think this was a sequel?" I said I wasn't sure, and for a while I wasn't. Then Mark was telling me something. He goes, "They do mention, Elizabeth in this movie," and he's right, they do. And it's something I wanted to go back and listen to. And every time I go back and watch this movie, it's something I listen to and listen for. And it said that Elizabeth had tea in a room. They're mentioning a prior character from the previous film. So is this a sequel to House of Dark Shadows? In a way, it is. Now, is it a sequel where it's having vampires in the story? No. There's no vampires in sight here. There's some supernatural activity going on here, but there's no vampires. So they're not following it from a story sense where, okay, yes, we're picking up from that story and telling our own, going off of it, but we're not telling the same exact story we just told in House, which is really cool. You want to talk about a sequel that is totally different from the first movie? Look no further than Night of Dark Shadows. Night of Dark Shadows really is different, and I love the introduction of Grayson Hall's Carletta. She's very matter of fact. She doesn't. Does she look like your typical heel or come off, as heelish? Not at first. Not at first. She's very welcoming to them. She's more so welcoming to Quentin simply because he looks like Charles Collins, Quentin Collins in this, is David Selby playing the Quentin that we all love and know from the series? Not quite. Again, this is another variation of Quentin. I more think that David Selby is somewhat playing the Quentin from Parallel Time. There's some big differences though, and here's a couple. Number one, he's not married to Angelique, and he's not been married to Maggie Evans. There's no Maggie Evans in this story. Daphne Heritage, I've talked about this, is playing Tracy Collins. Tracy is a whole different character and a whole different woman. I really love this where you have a completely different woman marrying Quentin. She's not Maggie Evans. She's not Angelique. She's not Daphne Heritage. Again, Kate Jackson playing this character different than what she played in this series is a key factor to this movie. And what goes on in this movie is key. I do think what they are taking a bit from the 1970 Quentin Collins, I've talked about this with Patrick McRae, and he's talked about this too. There's Maggie Evans does not put up with the domestic abuse that she receives from Quentin. She leaves, which is great. In this, it's not just domestic abuse; it's domestic abuse slash domestic violence. And this story does get into that. Not only into it, there is domestic violence going on. You have David Selby's Quentin Collins being very domestically violent to his wife. And it's intense. I mean, there's some intense scenes in this movie that you're on the edge of your seat. It's like, oh my God, is he gonna kill her? And really, you're waiting for him to kill her too at certain moments too. I mean, he tries to choke her. He tries to drown her in a pool. I mean, my God, this is intense as hell. It's so on the edge of your seat. It's like, is he just going to come in with a knife and end her? I mean, that's literally what you're asking with this movie. So, David Selby's Quentin is a painter, and his descendant, or his ancestor, I should say, Charles Collins was a painter. Now, is Quentin Collins or Charles Collins, are they sort of going off the Charles Delaware Tate? I think they're taking part of the name, but to say they're exactly going off of Charles Delaware Tate, I can't say yes. If you disagree, that's fine. And here's why I say no, that they're not exactly going off Charles Delaware Tate. Charles Delaware Tate in the series could bring his paintings literally to life, where Count Petofe gave him that power. My inclination of this is, I'll start with Charles Collins first. Here's Charles Collins, who's being played by David Selby, who is a painter as well, and he is married to Delana Malay's Laura Collins. Now, he has an affair with his brother Gabriel Collins' wife. Gabriel Collins' wife is Angelique in this story. Quentin, or sorry, Charles Collins. You'll see, if you ever watch this movie, you'll see why I just had to slip up. Um, Charles Collins and Angelique have an affair together, and Charles Collins is painting a portrait of um, his wife being dead, and that's Angelique says to him, "Bring the painting to life, Charles." And is that literal? Is it to the point of she's meaning, hey, paint something and bring it to life where it'll appear in front of you? No, what she's meaning, and this is where I interpreted this as, painting your wife dead. If you're going to paint your wife dead, make it happen. Do it. Kill her. Bring the painting to life. Make it where I'm with you and she's out of the picture. That's what I feel Angelique is meaning here. I don't think this is some sort of witchcraft voodoo talk here where she's putting a spell on him. I think in many ways, Charles Collins and Angelique's relationship was completely about lust. I mean, they were all over each other, literally. And Quentin Collins is fallen under Angelique's sort of spell too. Angelique is a very beautiful, seductive character here, and I love David Selby as Quentin Collins here, where he confronts Carletta. Is she real? I love that scene where he's, they're looking at the portrait, and Carletta's like, yes, Mr. Collins. Or sort of. I forget exactly what she tells him. But it's really an amazing scene. David Selby is intense. He's sort of seeing her around. He's sort of not the only one. Is is Kate, who is the protagonist in this movie? Because I'll give you my antagonist theory here in a bit. Who's the protagonist in this movie? Who's the hero? Kate Jackson, Alex Jenkins, and Claire Jenkins are your protagonists. I, by the way, Alex Jenkins sort of hears and sees Angelique as well too. So I don't think fully that Quentin starts off a protagonist. I do think an antagonist. I do think he sort of starts off a protagonist, but slowly he's becoming Charles Collins. Or maybe you could view it as he was always Charles Collins. He just needed a push. He's a painter like his ancestor was. He's married to a dark-haired woman like his aunt. Well, he's not married to a dark-haired woman in the past. He's married to Laura. That's what that's what sort of gets me where, okay, Laura Collins, Laura is married to Quentin. So there's something about Quentin Collins and these blondes. Oh my god. Oh my god. So you literally have where finally in this movie, when Quentin's up in the tower and Kate Jackson's knocking on the door and he answers the door and he looks like, you think I'm cheating on you? Go look. He goes, and he insults her, and slowly you're starting to see this turn. And I really love how in the night scenes, that's really where you're seeing the turn. Night of Dark Shadows. So, and I really think that's more a lot of the theme. It's not just when the sun goes down. It's the fact of how dark night, a shade of night, these that Quentin is becoming, really, if that makes sense. And I love the score of this movie. You want to talk about the best score in the Dark Shadows films? Look no further than Night of Dark Shadows. I like the fact you have there David as Reverend Strake. The past scenes I love. I really love how they go between the past and the present. It's really well done. Does Laura Parker have lines in this movie? Yes, but they are very few. Um, you know, I know some people don't like the fact that she doesn't have a ton of lines, and I get that. But for me, less is more. I mean, really, does she need him? She's very seductive. She does her job when she's in front of David Selby's character. And even when she's not, you could sort of feel an angelic presence throughout the house. I think that's something Night of Dark Shadows gets across very clear that this isn't the this is a home of a Collins, but it's the home of Angelique Collins. And that's something I take away most from Dark Shadows is that Angelique is a full-on presence in this movie, and it's amazing. It's really well done. Is Grayson Hall playing a different version of Julia Hoffman? No, but keep in mind there was a parallel time Julia Hoffman that worked for Angelique. She's not playing Julia Hoffman. She's playing Carletta. Is Are they the same character? No, because that Julia Hoffman was cold blooded. I don't get the cold bloodedness from Carletta. I more get somebody who's so loyal to not just Angelique, but in a way to Charles as well, to where she really, really loved Angelique. To her, Angelique was closer than any mother she did have, and that's saying something. You know, that's the one thing I take away. So by the end of this movie, it seems like they've defeated Angelique. It feels like that it, you have this great car chase sequence between James Storm, who's playing Gerard Stiles, and David Selby, who's playing Quentin Collins. And then you have this great fight sequence right after it. I love these scenes. These are really cool. And then you have the scar that happens in this fight. And you know, they show a portrait of Charles Collins and there's a scar. And you know, Alex Jenkins, who's played by John Carlin, makes a comment. If it weren't for the scar, I'd say you were Charles. And this is where he becomes, in many ways, he becomes Charles. After is, I would say, is in this fight is when he becomes Charles. More before he comes out. He's fooling everybody by the end of this movie. David Selby's. Let me get to John Carlin, and then I'll get back to David Selby. John Carlin and Nancy Barrett really deserve a lot of credit too for their characters. I really love the husband and wife factor and how much they really care for Quentin and for his wife. They 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 really care about those two characters, and it really shows in this movie. You know, a lot of Dark Shadows actors and actresses should have been getting phone calls from Hollywood, and this movie's proof of that. If the series isn't proof of that, the two movies are proof of that because the acting is phenomenal, and I mean just beautiful to watch. This film is for all its chaos and for all its violence. It's beautiful to watch in a weird way. No, not in a weird way, but in a way where you're looking at the film, you're going, "Wow, this film really has a style of its own," and it really does, and that's why I appreciate it so much. That and it really does have new characters. They're not just playing different versions. They're not just playing characters with a similar names. They are playing different characters throughout, which I love. Um, Again, the score of this movie is awesome. So David Selby and Kate Jackson, they act like they're leaving. Then David Selby's character Quentin turns around. He goes, "I forgot my easel." It's like, dude, you can buy another one. This is where things get crazy. Kate Jackson goes back into the house because David Selby's character Quentin doesn't come back. So Tracy goes back into the house, right? She sees him standing there. He's got the scar in his eye. He looks at her like, "I'm gonna kill you." Coming through the coming into the room is Angelique herself. She's alive, ladies and gentlemen. The ghost has now come back to life somehow. And it's just like, and then it cuts. It's like, oh my God, what happened next? They had to kill her, right? It's like, it's so psychologically good. It's amazing. This movie gets a solid 10 from me. I enjoy it from start to finish. It's one of those movies you can really appreciate because of its psychology. I do like the fact that they use art in this movie, and I love this movie's score. The possession of Quentin is bone chilling, my friends. And I love the hanging sequence in this movie. It's really well done. I love Thayer David is not in this movie a whole lot, but the moments he's in this movie, he really takes advantage of and makes himself known, which is what you want from an actor. You know, if someone's not in a movie a whole lot, you want them to be a presence. You know, I would say Laura Parker too. Laura Parker, you know, when she's in this movie, when you see her or you know, she makes herself known. And even when she's not around, you get the feeling that she is. And that's what really I love about this movie. You don't have to see Angelique to know she's there. You get the sense she's there. You This is how Tracy Collins is so relatable. You're feeling what Tracy's feeling. Like something's off here. And she's not wrong. She's absolutely right. Something is off in Hollywood. Uh, the Lyndhurst estate made a beautiful Collinwood. It did. It really made a beautiful Collinwood. I loved seeing the Lyndhurst estate. Um, no, I'm not going to say it made a better Collinwood, a better Collinwood than the sets did. Obviously not, or even the Seaview Terrace. But keep in mind, they only used the Seaview Terrace in the beginning episodes for for so long. For the biggest part, they're on a set. So you know, it's really well done. Night of Dark Shadows. I pointed out the similarities and the differences. Again, this movie does a great job separating itself from the series. It's not canon to it, but there are moments that are taken from the series. Again, I don't think it's this to me is the less offender of House, because House is more taken from the Maggie Evans storyline than anything else. This really does feel like its own story. I don't think they're just taken from the parallel time story. They are taking, you know, a somewhat version of that, but they're turning it so far up that you don't. When you look at this movie and you look at parallel time, it's like holy shit! It's like night and day, and it's really well done. So if you have not checked out House of Dark Shadows or this movie Night of Dark Shadows, I highly recommend them both. Yes, I'm going to talk about the 2012 Dark Shadows movie tomorrow. Tomorrow, not today, tomorrow. So sorry for the wait. You guys have to wait for that video, but tomorrow I'll talk about the 2012 movie. I have other things to do today, unfortunately. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts. First of all, who's your favorite character from this movie? I'll give you mine. It is Angelique. I'll plead guilty to this. Laura Parker steals this movie for me. Again, I love the score of this movie. It's really well done. Um, the score is as much of a character in this movie as anything else. It really is. The location, Lyndhurst Estate is really good. I love my favorite scene. I love the pool scene. I really love the way they used it in this movie as to suppose the way it got used in House of Dark Shadows. So, what's you guys' favorite scene? Please let me know. And I hope you guys have a great Wednesday. Have a good day, guys.